The unveiling. Captain Mira Sinha stood tall on the bridge of the EDS Prometheus, Earth's first interstellar warship. Through the expansive viewport, she could see the gathered crowd waiting restlessly in the viewing arena. Media drones flitted about, transmitting the historic moment to the eager populations of humanity's burgeoning extrasolar colonies. Sinha allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The Prometheus represented the culmination of decades of research and ingenuity, a shining beacon of humanity's potential as they took their first tentative steps into the galactic community. The ship was a marvel of engineering, from its sleek, nanotube-reinforced hull to the quantum entanglement drive that would allow it to cross the vast distances between stars in mere days. But the true wonder lay in the Prometheus' cutting-edge weaponry, the product of humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. Captain, the Defense Council has given the go-ahead. We're clear to launch. The voice of her first officer, Commander Rhys Donovan, snapped Sinha back to the present. She nodded, settling into the command chair. Begin launch sequence. The bridge crew worked with crisp efficiency, their hands dancing over holographic controls. Status reports flooded in, green across the board. Sinha toggled the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for launch. A deep hum built within the ship as the drives powered up, the deck plates thrumming beneath their feet. On the viewport, the crowd erupted into cheers as the Prometheus lifted off, the first rays of dawn glinting off its mirror-bright hull. Sinha felt a thrill rush through her as the ship clawed its way out of Earth's gravity well, the blue curve of the horizon falling away. This was what she had worked for all her life, the chance to lead humanity to its rightful place among the stars. As the Prometheus cleared the atmosphere, Sinha permitted herself a small smile. The ship was performing flawlessly, just as she knew it would. Quantum drive status, she queried. Drives are charged and ready, Captain, the helmsman reported. Ready for interstellar jump on your command. Sinha leaned forward, her dark eyes gleaming with anticipation. Let's see what this ship can really do. Engage quantum drive. The stars outside the viewport suddenly streaked into long blue lines as the Prometheus leaped into the unknown, riding the crest of an artificial wormhole. History was being made, and Sinha and her crew were at the vanguard. Little did they know that their maiden voyage would be anything but routine. As the first human ship to venture beyond the confines of Sol, the Prometheus was about to encounter wonders and dangers beyond anything they had prepared for. And the choices they made would shape the future of humanity's interstellar existence for generations to come. First contact. The blue-shifted tunnel of warped space-time suddenly collapsed back into a starfield, signaling the end of the Prometheus' first interstellar jump. A cheer went up from the bridge crew at the textbook execution of the untested quantum drive technology. They had emerged on the fringes of the Sol system, farther from Earth than any human had ever ventured. Captain Sinha allowed the crew a moment of celebration before calling them back to focus. Full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about this region of space. As the bridge crew set to work, a puzzled frown creased the brow of Liang Chen, the sensor officer. Captain, I'm picking up an anomalous reading at the edge of sensor range. It looks like a ship. Sinha straightened in her command chair, instantly alert. Can you confirm? Chen worked furiously at his console. Confirmed, Captain. Unknown vessel. Configuration does not match any known human design. Energy readings are off the charts. Sinha's mind raced. They had known first contact with an alien species was a possibility, but no one had expected it so soon, or without warning. She had to handle this carefully. Open a hailing frequency, all standard first contact protocols. The comms officer nodded, fingers flying over his interface. Hailing frequencies open, Captain. Sinha took a deep breath, composing herself. This is Captain Mira Sinha of the Earth Defense Ship Prometheus, representing the United Earth Federation. We come in peace, seeking friendship and mutual understanding between our peoples. There was a long, tense moment of silence. Then the main view screen flickered to life, and Cinna found herself staring into a nightmare. The being on the screen was a monstrosity of chitinous armor and razor-sharp mandibles, its compound eyes glittering with malevolent intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was a grating buzz that set Cinna's teeth on edge. "I am Warlord Xor of the Zorgaxian Empire. You have violated the territory of the Zorgax. Surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded." Cinna fought down a spike of fear. She had to remain calm, project strength. "Warlord Xor, there has been a misunderstanding. We are peaceful explorers, unaware of any territorial claims in this region. We wish to open a dialogue between our peoples to foster understanding and cooperation." The Zorgaxian warlord made a sound that might have been laughter, a harsh chittering that grated on Cinna's nerves. "There will be no dialogue, human. The Zorgax do not cooperate. We conquer. Your primitive vessel is now the property of the Zorgaxian Empire. Surrender or be destroyed." Cinna gripped the arms of her command chair, her knuckles whitening. She had to make a decision, and fast. The Prometheus was the most advanced ship humanity had ever built, but it was still untested in combat. To surrender would be to hand over humanity's greatest technological secrets to a hostile power. "Helm, emergency jump now. Get us out of here," Cinna barked. The helmsman obeyed without hesitation, hands flying over his console. The view screen showed the Zorgaxian warship looming larger, weapons ports glowing ominously as it prepared to fire. Then the Prometheus quantum drive engaged with a bone-jarring lurch, and the alien ship vanished into a smear of light. Cinna sagged back in her chair, adrenaline still surging through her veins. They had escaped, but just barely. And now they knew the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than they had ever imagined. She keyed the shipwide comm. "All hands. This is the captain. We have just made first contact with a hostile alien species. I need damage and readiness reports from all departments. This is not a drill. I say again, this is not a drill." As the crew scrambled to respond, Cinna found herself gripped by a grim determination. The Prometheus mission had just become more vital than ever. Somehow, she had to find a way to protect humanity from the Zorgaxian threat. The future of her species might well depend on it. The gathering storm. In the Cyclopean halls of the Zorgaxian throne world, Warlord Xor knelt before the looming holographic projection of Emperor Xark, supreme leader of the Zorgax. The Emperor's visage was a nightmarish fusion of organic and mechanical, his carapace adorned with pulsing cybernetic implants. "Speak, Warlord," the Emperor grated. "What news of your patrol?" Xor kept his head bowed, knowing the price of displeasing his sovereign. "My lord, we encountered a vessel of unknown origin at the fringes of our territory. It bore marking identifying it as belonging to a species called humans. They claimed to be peaceful explorers." The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed. "And you destroyed this vessel, of course." Xor felt a flicker of fear. "No, my lord. The ship escaped. It possessed some form of advanced propulsion we have not encountered before. It jumped to light speed before we could cripple it." There was a long, terrifying silence. When the Emperor spoke again, his voice was a low, dangerous rumble. "You let an unknown species penetrate our borders and gather intelligence on our capabilities. This is unacceptable, Warlord." Xor prostrated himself, his forehead pressing against the cold metal of the floor. "Forgive me, my lord. I will not fail you again. See that you do not. You will take a war fleet and locate this human homeworld. Raise it to ashes as an example to any who would defy the Zorgax. Bring me the charred remains of their leaders as trophies." Xor felt a surge of bloodlust at the thought of conquest and plunder. "As you command, my lord. The humans will learn to fear the might of the Zorgax." A hologram flickered out, leaving Xor alone in the darkness. He rose, mandibles twitching with anticipation. The hunt was on, and the human's screams would be his sweetest reward. In the gleaming halls of the Earth Defense Council, Captain Mira Cinna stood before a semicircle of grim-faced officials, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. She had just finished giving her report on the encounter with the Zorgaxians, and the mood in the room was one of barely controlled panic. "Captain Cinna, are you absolutely certain of the hostile intent of these Zorgaxians?" asked Counselor Javier Martinez, his brow furrowed with concern. Cinna met his gaze unflinchingly. "There is no doubt in my mind, Counselor. The Zorgaxian commander made their intentions quite clear. They see us as primitives to be conquered and subjugated." A murmur of unease rippled through the assembled counselors. Cinna pressed on, her voice ringing with conviction. "The Prometheus and its advanced weaponry may be our only hope against a Zorgaxian invasion. We must act now, before they have a chance to marshal their forces against us." Counselor Aditi Singh leaned forward, her expression troubled. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" Cinna took a deep breath. She knew her next words would be controversial. "I propose that we send the Prometheus and a small escort fleet to intercept the Zorgaxians before they reach Earth. We must show them that we are not helpless primitives, that we have the strength and resolve to defend ourselves." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some raised in support, others in vehement opposition. Cinna weathered the storm, her jaw set with determination. She knew in her bones that this was the right course of action, the only way to safeguard humanity's future. Finally, the clamor died down, and all eyes turned to the head counselor, an elderly statesman named Yuri Petrov. He steepled his fingers, his gaze piercing as he studied Cinna. "Captain, you are asking us to commit to a potentially disastrous course of action based on a single encounter. Are you certain this is wise?" Cinna met his gaze without flinching. "With all due respect, Counselor, we cannot afford to wait for certainty. Every moment we delay is a moment the Zorgaxians use to prepare their assault. We must act, and we must act now." There was a long, tense silence. Then Petrov nodded slowly. "Very well, Captain. You have the Council's authorization to intercept the Zorgaxian fleet, but understand that you carry the hopes and fears of all humanity with you. We cannot afford failure." Cinna snapped to attention, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "I understand, Counselor. I will not let you down. I will not let humanity down." She saluted crisply, then turned on her heel and strode from the chamber, her mind already racing with plans and contingencies. The Prometheus was the most advanced warship humanity had ever created. Now it was time to see what it could really do, with the fate of the species hanging in the balance. Battle joined. The void of space was silent and still, the distant stars cold and uncaring as the Prometheus and its small escort fleet slipped through the emptiness. Captain Mira Cinna stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as her ships moved into formation. They were deep in the Oort cloud now, the vast, icy halo that marked the outer boundary of the Sol system. This was where they would make their stand against the Zorgaxian invasion fleet, using the cover of the ice and rock to even the odds against the aliens' superior numbers. "Captain, we're picking up a massive gravimetric distortion at the edge of sensor range," reported Liang Chen, the sensor officer. "It matches the profile of a large-scale subspace rupture." Cinna felt a chill run down her spine. "They're here." She turned to her comms officer. "Signal the fleet. Battle stations, all ships. Prepare to engage the enemy." Alarms blared through the Prometheus as the crew rushed to their stations, the ship thrumming with barely contained power. Cinna gripped the arms of her command chair, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to tear apart as a massive wormhole yawned open, its edges crackling with eldritch energy. And through that rift poured the Zorgaxian invasion fleet, a swarm of nightmarish ships bristling with alien weaponry. "By the gods," breathed Commander Rhys Donovan, Cinna's first officer. "There's so many of them." Cinna forced down her own surge of fear. They had known they would be outnumbered, but the sheer scale of the Zorgaxian force was staggering. Dozens of capital ships, each one dwarfing the Prometheus, escorted by hundreds of smaller attack craft. But Sinha and her crew had not come this far to back down now. The Prometheus was humanity's best hope, and they would not fail. "Weapons, target the lead dreadnought," Sinha ordered, her voice calm and steady. "Prepare to fire the Odin's spear." In the bowels of the Prometheus, engineering teams scrambled to bring the ship's secret weapon online. The Odin's spear was the pinnacle of human ingenuity, a massive railgun that used artificial gravity fields to accelerate a depleted uranium projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. It was a weapon designed to kill gods, and the Zorgaxians were about to learn its power. "Odin's spear charged and ready, Captain," reported the weapons officer. Sinha leaned forward in her chair, her eyes narrowed with determination. "Fire." The Prometheus shuddered as the Odin spear unleashed its fury, the entire ship bucking from the recoil. On the view screen, a lance of incandescent light shot towards the Zorgaxian flagship, crossing the vast distance in the blink of an eye. The alien dreadnought tried to evade, but it was far too slow. The Odin spear struck it amidships, the depleted uranium projectile tearing through the vessel's shields as if they were paper before burrowing deep into its hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Zorgaxian ship bloomed into a miniature sun as its antimatter reactors lost containment, the explosion utterly consuming the massive vessel and several of its escorts. A cheer went up from the Prometheus crew as the Zorgaxian fleet reeled in shock and confusion. They had not expected the humans to possess such devastating weaponry. But Sinha knew the battle was far from over. The Zorgaxians still vastly outnumbered them, and they would not be caught off guard again. "All ships, engage at will," Sinha commanded over the fleet comm. "Focus fire on their capital ships." And with that, the battle was joined in earnest. Human and Zorgaxian ships danced a deadly waltz, trading blistering volleys of energy beams and missiles. The Prometheus was in the thick of it, its advanced shields and armor weathering blow after blow as it struck back with the Odin spear and banks of particle beam cannons. But even with their technological edge, the humans were hard-pressed. The Zorgaxians were seasoned warriors, their ships and tactics honed by centuries of conquest. One by one, the human escorts fell, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of alien firepower. Soon, only the Prometheus remained, a lone bastion against the Zorgaxian horde. Its shields were failing, its armor pitted and scarred. But still it fought on, Mirasina urging her battered ship and crew to ever greater feats of courage and skill. "Captain, we can't take much more of this," Commander Donovan shouted over the din of battle. "We have to withdraw." Sinha shook her head grimly. "No, we stop them here, or we doom Earth. We fight to the last, turning the tide." On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Xorg seethed with rage as he watched his ships fall one by one to the humans' accursed superweapon. The Prometheus, battered but unbroken, continued to cut a swath of destruction through his fleet, its crew fighting with a skill and tenacity that belied their status as primitives. "This is unacceptable," Xorg snarled, his claws gouging deep furrows into his command throne. "The humans should be crushed beneath our might, not holding their own against the cream of the Zorgaxian war machine." His second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Sol, chittered nervously. "My lord, the humans have proven more formidable than we anticipated. Perhaps we should regroup, gather reinforcements." Xorg rounded on him, his mandibles quivering with fury. "Retreat. Before these upstarts? Never. I will see their world burned to ashes, their people enslaved, their precious ship dismantled piece by piece, so that we may learn its secrets." He turned to his comms officer. "Summon the Obliterator." Sol recoiled in shock. "The Obliterator? But, my lord, it is a weapon of last resort, meant only for the most dire of circumstances." Xorg silenced him with a glare. "These are dire circumstances, fool. The humans have proven themselves a threat to the supremacy of the Zorgax. They must be made an example of, their defiance crushed utterly. and the obliterator will be the instrument of their destruction. On the Prometheus battle-scarred bridge, Mirasina gripped her command chair as another volley of Zorgaxian fire hammered the ship's failing shields. Consoles sparked and smoked around her, the air thick with the acrid scent of burning insulation. "Shields down to 15%, shouted Liang Chen, his face streaked with sweat and grime. "Hull breaches on decks 4, 7, and 12. Sinha gritted her teeth. The Prometheus was a marvel of human engineering. But even it had its limits. They had destroyed dozens of Zorgaxian ships, but the aliens kept coming, heedless of their losses, driven by a fanatical desire to see humanity crushed. "Captain, we're picking up a massive energy surge from the Zorgaxian flagship," called out the sensor officer, her voice edged with panic. "They're charging up some kind of weapon, like nothing we've seen before." Sinha leaned forward, her eyes widening as she saw the readings for herself. The energy output was staggering, orders of magnitude beyond anything the Zorgaxians had deployed thus far. "Evasive maneuvers," she barked. "Get us out of the line of fire." But it was too late. A blinding lance of energy erupted from the Zorgaxian flagship, stabbing across the void towards the Prometheus. It struck the human ship's shields, and passed through them, as if they weren't even there. The Prometheus bucked and heaved as the beam carved a molten path along its hull, vaporizing armor and decks alike. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, crew members screaming as they were hurled like ragdolls by the impacts. In the CIC, Mirasina clung to her command chair as the world around her dissolved into chaos. Alarms shrieked, emergency lights painting the bridge in hellish red hues. Over the din, she could hear the damage reports pouring in, each one more dire than the last. "Captain." It was Commander Donovan, his face a mask of blood and soot. "That last hit took out our main power relays. The Odin spear is offline, propulsion is crippled. We're dead in the water." Sinha felt a leaden weight settle in her gut. The Prometheus, humanity's greatest hope, had been beaten. The Zorgaxians had won. No, she refused to accept that, refused to let the sacrifices of her crew, of all the ships and souls lost in this desperate battle, be in vain. There had to be a way. And then, with a sudden, crystalline clarity, she knew what she had to do. "Ready the evacuation pods," she ordered, her voice calm and steady. "Get the crew to safety. Then overload the quantum core." Donovan stared at her, his eyes wide with shock. "Captain, that's suicide." "The explosion. We'll take out the obliterator, and a good chunk of the Zorgaxian fleet with it," Sinha finished for him. "It's the only way, Reese. The only way to give Earth a fighting chance." She could see the anguish in Donovan's eyes, the struggle between his duty to obey her orders and his desire to save her life. But in the end, he was a soldier, sworn to protect humanity at any cost, just as she was. "Aye, Captain," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "It's been an honor serving with you." Sinha managed a smile, despite the fear and sorrow welling up inside her. "The honor was mine, Commander. Now get our people to safety. That's an order." Donovan nodded, then snapped a crisp salute before turning to relay her orders. Sinha sagged back in her chair, suddenly feeling the weight of her years, of all the burdens she had carried to reach this moment. But there was no time for doubt, no room for second-guessing. She had a duty to fulfill. With a deep breath, she opened a channel to engineering. "Overload the quantum core," she commanded, ramming speed. As the Prometheus surged forward, propelled by the last dregs of its power, Mirasina closed her eyes, picturing the green hills of Earth, the smiling faces of her family. She had always known this mission might demand the ultimate sacrifice, but it was a price she was willing to pay to secure humanity's future among the stars. The Prometheus, burning and broken, hurtled towards the Zorgaxian flagship like an avenging angel, the light of its overloading core painting the void in a blaze of defiant glory. Mirasina's last thought, before the world dissolved in fire and fury, was that perhaps, in the end, this had always been her destiny, to light the spark that would illuminate humanity's path to the stars, no matter the cost. And then, oblivion. Aftermath. The Zorgaxian throne world was in chaos, the news of the disaster at Sol spreading like wildfire. In the span of a single battle, a significant portion of the Empire's war fleet had been lost, along with two of its most vaunted weapons, the Obliterator and the flagship of Warlord Xorg himself. Emperor Xarg was in a towering rage, his fury shaking the very foundations of his palace. He had underestimated the humans, had failed to see the threat they posed until it was too late. And now, the unthinkable had happened. The Zorgax, the greatest warrior race the galaxy had ever known, had been defeated. But even as the Emperor raged and his courtiers cowered, the Zorgaxian logicians and strategists were already at work, analyzing the battle data, seeking to understand how the primitives of Earth had managed such a feat. And what they found sent ripples of unease through the highest echelons of the Empire. The humans, it seemed, had not just been lucky. Their technology, while less advanced than the Zorgaxians in many respects, showed a remarkable level of ingenuity and adaptability. The Prometheus quantum core, the gravitic accelerators of the Odin spear, the layered defense screens that had weathered the assault of the finest Zorgaxian warships. All of these spoke of a species with a keen grasp of the fundamental forces of the universe and the will to bend them to their advantage. But even more worrying was what the battle had revealed about the humans themselves. They had fought with a determination and selflessness that was almost unheard of among the races the Zorgax had conquered. The crew of the Prometheus had willingly sacrificed themselves to secure victory, a concept that was utterly alien to the self-serving, glory-seeking Zorgaxian warriors. It was a chilling realization, one that struck at the very heart of the Zorgaxian way of life. If the humans could inspire such devotion, such unity of purpose, what chance did the fractious, backstabbing Zorgax have against them in the long run? Emperor Xarg, for all his bluster and rage, was no fool. He could see the writing on the wall as clearly as any of his advisors. The humans, in a single stroke, had proven themselves a force to be reckoned with. To continue the war would be to risk the very foundations of the Zorgaxian Empire. And so, with great reluctance and no small measure of wounded pride, Emperor Xarg made the only decision he could. He would sue for peace with the humans, would offer them a seat at the galactic table as equals. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but the alternative was too ghastly to contemplate. On Earth, the mood was one of somber celebration. The Zorgaxian invasion had been repelled. Humanity had secured its place among the stars. But the cost had been high. The Prometheus, the great hope of the Earth Defense Force, was gone, sacrificed in the heat of battle. And with it, some of humanity's finest and bravest, including Captain Miracinda, the woman who had led them to victory against impossible odds. There would be time to mourn, to honor the fallen as the heroes they were. But even as Earth wept, it also looked to the future with newfound hope and determination. The Zorgaxians, humbled and chastened, had come to the negotiating table, seeking a new relationship with the upstart species that had so soundly defeated them. A new era was dawning, one in which humanity would take its rightful place as a power to be reckoned with on the galactic stage. And as the diplomats and the politicians worked to hammer out the details of this new alliance, the scientists and the dreamers were already looking beyond, to the next horizon. The Prometheus may have been lost, but its legacy would endure. It had shown what humanity was capable of when it stood united, when it dared to reach for the stars with both hands. In labs and workshops across the planet, a new generation of ships and weapons were already taking shape, built on the hard-won lessons of the Battle of Sol. The quantum cores were being refined, the gravitic accelerators miniaturized and streamlined. A new fleet was rising, one that would carry humanity's banner to the farthest reaches of the galaxy and beyond. And among this new breed of explorers and warriors, one name was spoken with particular reverence: Mira, the captain who had given her life to secure humanity's future. Her sacrifice would never be forgotten, her legacy etched in the annals of history for all time. For she had shown that even the mightiest of empires could be brought low by the courage and tenacity of a single determined soul, that the human spirit, when tested to its limits, could achieve the impossible. It was a lesson that would shape humanity's destiny for generations to come, as they ventured forth into the vast, unknowable reaches of the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever enemies they might face, they would meet them with the same indomitable will that had carried the Prometheus to victory. For they were humanity, and the stars were their birthright. The end.